definitely want to jump on here and let y'all know, just because the person that you felt should have won didn't make it across the finish line, don't for a second allow yourself to question your beliefs and what it is that you stand for. Because just because some results didn't go how you foreseen them to go, it doesn't mean that you wrong about anything. One thing this election did teach me is something that he knew is something that I didn't know. That character no longer matters. That all the dark and divisiveness and all the things he said, he knew people wanted that. I just didn't think that they did.
Welcome back to another episode of Black and Audacious. I am Tawanda, joined here with my hosts Ekaette and Nikkia, and we are back with a special edition of Black and Audacious. It's really thinking about these posts. It's special. It's special because we're diving into one of the most historic elections of our time. I think anyone, especially as a millennial, we've been through so many historic things, and this definitely was one of them. I think the audience knows, and maybe if you don't, we tend to talk about bold and audacious ideas. We interview bold guests. We talk about everything in between, from pop culture to comms. But today we're talking election. So get ready for an unapologetic breakdown or review from us three on what went down Tuesday night into Wednesday morning and what will go down for the next 4 years, really. I want to set the scene, though, and really get some just initial thoughts from both of you on everything that has led up to this point, everything that led up to Tuesday, where we are. Like, what are your thoughts around how everything has played out?
Oh gosh. I mean, for me, I was not surprised. It was the world that I live in, and I'm a realist about things. The world that I live in, the US of A that I live in, would never elect a woman. I don't think that we're in a position to, and I keep saying they are not in a position to elect a woman. They're not comfortable with it. It's not something that they feel that the country would benefit from whatsoever. So it's, for me, I was just like, it's going to be a great run. It's going to be a really great run. People are going to rally behind her. It's going to be a moment in time. But when, at the end of the day, I knew that this was going to be the outcome. And it was unfortunate for her because she literally had, 2 months to rev things up when they said that Biden was not going to continue on. They threw her in the mix. She had to scramble, her team had to scramble and pull things together. And then we come to November, 5th, and like, where are we? So I think Kamala did a great job with what she had. I voted for her, and we're just going to see where things go, over the next 4 years. So I have to be hopeful, because at the end of the day, I have to make sure that my family's okay and my daughter is going to be living in a better world as we go, this journey continues. So that's just kind of where I am.
Yeah. It's interesting you say that, Ekaette, being the realist, because that's in your nature. And then for me, it's like, I'm more so always the optimist. I think Kamala really came in strong. Like, once they were able to kind of have this whole sort of switch up where, Biden was going to kind of bow out of the race. I was just really hopeful. I mean, I think the energy around her, just like overall, like the support the public support that she was getting across the board, across party lines, it felt like we had a fighting chance. And again, that's just me naturally wanting to be optimistic. But I think the first, when I started to kind of see like the polls coming in, it really kind of put me back in the mindset of, I want to say back in 2022 with the governor election. And just, I kind of felt that like the same visceral reactions that I had with just like Stacey Abrams and how that was managed.
Yeah.
And then, like you said, like, I think once reality hit, I'm like, I'm not surprised at all. I think there was a bit of cynicism that came over me, that I'm just like, you know what, like, this country cannot stomach a Black woman who is over qualified, well educated, overqualified for the position. They cannot stomach that, so they will have to. They choose the lack thereof better option, worse option in my opinion, and it's just disheartening. And I think, you know, honestly, as a Black woman, I think we're all exhausted, but now, like, my resistance is rest and refusal. No is going to be so much more in my vocabulary.
Mm-hmm.
And yeah, I'm just, you know, like you said, the next 4 years, I'm just really kind of mentally preparing myself in terms of what's important to me. I mean, selfishly, honestly, because, you know, at the end of the day, this is how a lot of, you know, white women voted, white men voted. They voted for their own selfish reasons, right?
Yeah.
So yeah, rest and refusal is going to be my resistance moving forward.
Absolutely.
Yeah.
What about you, T?
I think for me, I was very hopeful, but I was at every step, I kept getting 2016 vibes.
Mm-hmm.
I kept feeling like if Hillary couldn't do it, I don't want to be negative, but it was just, she was just as qualified as well.
Of course.
And it was still a no. Trump has run it 3 times. And I guess in his second run, there was something in the Democratic Party that felt like that the people felt would work with Biden. And that's why he won, even though at that time the Democratic Party was like, oh, we need fresh new blood, But they went with Biden, who...
They went with Biden because he was kind of on the trail of Obama. He was a part of that administration. So it was kind of like, you know, he was associated with that, you know, administration. So it was just a natural. It's like, okay, he's been a part of that, and we were, you know, for that when we voted for Obama. So we're going to give him a chance.
Yeah. And with Kamala, when she announced her bid, I was very hopeful. When I started seeing a lot of the celebrity endorsements, I'm not going to lie, I got a little less hopeful, because I feel like the Democratic Party, or people who tend to vote Democrat, from what I've seen, they're very it's a lot of showboating. I'm probably going to get some flack for this. And I feel like the Republican Party moves stealthily. Like, they don't do a lot of that. And I'm not saying we don't go out and vote and things like that, but I just think there's a different way that they move. Like, they get it and they band together and they get it done.
Yeah.
And when I sat down on Tuesday night at 7:00, I sat down, got ready to look at the numbers and everything. I was like, this isn't going to happen. I was like, this isn't going to happen. And when those numbers started rolling in, I was like, and me and my partner were comparing the maps from each year. Like, oh, he's supposed to win that state. Okay, he got that state. Okay. Yep. But then it was like,
it was too red for me.
It was too red. And I was like, this is not going to happen. And so I prayerfully wanted it to happen. But not trying to get preachy, you know, for me, God is in control. And that's who I have to put my trust in at the end of the day.
Yeah.
So that's the lane I'm driving in. There's still work that has to be done. I think, you know, there has to be a community effort with people, especially Black people. We have to band together and do things as a collective if we want to move forward.
So let me touch on that for real quick. So when Kamala was confirmed as the Democratic nominee, there was a huge Zoom. I think it was the largest Zoom gathering for the first time it was all Black women. One of the things that really kind of did not sit well with me is that it became an opportunity for Black people to segmentate themselves once again. It was, if you're a part of an HBCU, you get access to the call. If you are an AKA, you get access to the call. Everybody was excited for her. We all were excited for her. But then it took a turn where you saw a lot of segmentation, like processes and practices happening. And I think that really did not sit well. That was kind of setting the tone in the Black community for me, when you wanted to be a part of something, but you weren't given access because you weren't a part of this group within our group.
Yeah, I remember us actually being, we were invited to one of those Zooms. Like literally, this is probably like, 24, 48 hours. And I think you and I, Ekaette, tried to get into that Zoom and were denied access. Access denied. But this is the same old story, like with us in the Black community. Like, this is nothing new. You know, the segmentation, pinning each other against each other. It's like, that's neither here nor there. I think one of the other things that really grind my gears is, I have had conversations with Black men in particular who have, essentially have written Kamala off just based off of the fact that she's married to a white man. And I literally just had like a conversation, or lack thereof, actually, because I told him I was not going back and forth with him on Instagram, that, she disappointed us. This is what he was saying in his point of view. She disappointed us by deciding to marry a white man. And I said, what does that have anything to do with her being the most qualified candidate in history? Mm-hmm. Who she loves has zero to do with, on paper, this woman being top tier, overqualified. If you put anyone up against her, let alone someone that is, we already know what that looks like. So that's, for me, I think that's kind of, even leading up to the election, I've heard a lot of those type of conversations. And honestly, it really kind of boils down to egotistical mindset, in my opinion. Like, what is,
it's not warranted.
Why are you disappointed that she disappointed you because she decided to marry a white man?
But it's not warranted when you're dapping up your favorite athlete, every Thursday, Friday, Saturday, and Sunday and Monday, because football is like basketball, all these different sports, and your favorite athlete's athlete is it's the same. They have the same situation going on.
We don't want to have that conversation, but you know what?
But the exit polls show, unless I am reading them incorrectly, so please correct me, Black men did show up for Kamala Harris. Maybe not as much as Black women, but there was a huge percentage of them that actually, whatever was said versus what was done.
In no way, I'm just talking in terms of some of the experiences that I've had with Black men. I'm in no way generalizing it. I'm giving a perspective just based on some of the conversations. I know, like, Black men have definitely shown up, but again, when we talk about the segmentation and points of view, like leading up to this, these are just certain conversations that I've had with Black men, and it's really disappointing, honestly.
Yeah.
But there are Black men that have had our back, cheers to all of them. I'm not discrediting them in any way, but I am shedding light on those who feel the need to have an unwarranted opinion about who she's in love with.
And they had the biggest voices across all the different platforms. They had the biggest voices. So it was assumed by so many people that, Black men were not going to show up for Kamala, which they did. They did in large numbers. Mm-hmm. So we have to go back to the drawing board and go into our communities and do some education, some healing, because I think it comes from healing too, because I'm always like, how are you not going to like a Black woman when your mama's Black? What's going on? Your sister's Black, your auntie's Black, your child is Black, your daughter. So when people show up that way, I think it's deep rooted.
Oh yeah.
It's stemming from something that has happened to them to make them outwardly talk about Black women in that way. So there's a lot to be said. There's a lot of education, a lot of healing that needs to be done within the community. But I do want to make sure that we know that Black men showed up for
Oh,
Kamala,
absolutely.
for sure.
And I am in no way bashing Black men. Okay.
Yeah,
my
absolutely.
man is a Black man and I love him dearly. And he definitely showed up, on election day. So yes, I love my Black men, but I have had these conversations where it's been like cringy. Like, what does that have to do with anything?
Yeah, absolutely.
Moving on.
Were there any states that surprised you at all when we think about like the battlegrounds or anything like that? Is there anything from that like data exit polls that surprised you? Looking back through,
I'm never surprised. It's been like, I think people live in places where they know they're going to be comfortable. You know what I mean? And or not move, because a lot of people stay at home because they don't want to move to other areas because it's not going to be something that they're comfortable with. So I didn't see on my end any surprises.
You didn't think Georgia was going to stay blue? You thought Georgia was going to flip?
No, I didn't. Mm-mm. Because outside of Atlanta, there's a whole other type of Georgia that people don't know about.
Yeah, it was just it turned blue in 2021, I can forget the election year, but it turned blue. So then it
was in 2020. But again, going back to the governor's race, that was not that long ago. That was 2 years ago, right? Yeah. And so they showed us then. They showed us then, like what really matters, like.
They were mad about
dignity. None of that matters.
And Kamala came, to Georgia because, Nikkia and I are in Atlanta, Georgia. She came. There were so many rallies. I mean, I was getting notifications. Oh, she's going to be rallying here. She made a huge, and actually, she did a special post for Georgia. She said, "Thank you, Georgia," on one of her Instagram posts because she knew that there was a lot of work being done in this state that didn't happen, across the board. So she did thank Georgia specifically for all the hard work that we put in. So there was a lot of canvassing going on, lots of rallies going on. It was a lot of support, but people have to realize the city of Atlanta is where there's a concentrated group of, Black people, Black and brown people. But then you go outside of that, it's a whole different world, completely different world.
Yes, it is.
Yes.
Yes, it is.
Next up, what we got, T?
Let's see. Let's look into the aftermath a little bit. We have our opinions. We have like what we think and what we've experienced and heard and have talked about, but I love looking through the files of public opinion just to get different perspectives, commentary around who said what, how they said it, if I agree or not. I know my specific timeline, if I'm thinking about Facebook, was very Trump. I have a lot of friends from high school or people from high school who are my friends on Facebook, and a lot of them are Trumpers. So it was a lot of that.
Did you unfollow them?
Huh?
Did you unfollow them?
Some of them I did, and some of them I'm just like, keep your enemies kind of close. Like, just keep a little eye on them. Like, they're gonna have their opinion. So I can't. I'm gonna have mine.
Yeah.
But on Instagram, definitely who I follow or who I'm connected with is just very much a disappointment. It feels like a gloom over the feed, and I'm sure that will lighten. Yeah. But does anyone want to go first with what they found on the interwebs, the Instagram?
Yeah, I mean, my focus was really on, I have a daughter, so I always look to what's happening with the youth, like how is this impacting their lives? Mm-hmm. And what was really sad to me was just the thought that we had to kids are dealing with a lot right now in general. So one of the things that has happened, I don't know if you guys have seen this, but high school and college students have been receiving this message. Basically, it says, "Greetings, you have been selected to pick cotton at the nearest plantation. Be ready at 12 a.m. November 13th, 2024 sharp. Our exclusive slaves will come get you in a brown van. Be prepared to be searched upon arrival to the plantation. No personal belongings allowed. You are in a plantation group A. Come on.
I know it's not funny, but I just have to laugh to keep from.
I thought that was from the. I thought Black people were doing that, like trying to be funny. Where did this come from?
This was actually being sent out to college and high school students, and they're like upset about it. I mean, it's just like, I mean, just imagine getting that type of text message, you know, on your phone.
I've seen that from influencers, but they were like being funny. Maybe I'm on a different
No,
side.
I've actually
I saw this on
my
TikTok.
feed too.
I mean, this was on TikTok, and I saw a young
wow.
lady. She was actually crying because she received it. She was like, "I'm tired."
Oh wow.
Yeah, and this was specifically targeting high school and college students. So I don't find this to be funny. I think that this is like, this type of rhetoric is very dangerous, and it's not fair. And they'll give you actually, this takes me into another video that I actually found that was really heartbreaking. Young lady attending Texas State University, big Texas, of course, big Trump, you know, red state.
This shit is not real. And they talking about some, y'all need to go to hell. Like, bitch, are you crazy? Bitch, are you crazy?
Wow.
Okay, y'all, so I go to Texas State University, and this is currently what's going on at my school. They have signs everywhere saying that kind of stuff. Recently, like last week, they said they had signs all over San Marcos saying, okay, I don't know why it stopped, but it said, if you voted for Kamala, we will find you. Basically KKK organization stuff. And this is getting out of hand. So this is our friend, and currently a building is on lockdown because of this. And all I'm saying is this is going to get worse if we as a whole and a collective do not decide to stand up and fight against this inhumane society that we now live in.
Mm-hmm.
College students saying that we live in an inhumane society. Like, they should not have to deal with that on a college campus. That's where you learn and grow and experience things, not be harassed by your, you know, other peers, you know, of the student body because of an election that went one way versus the other.
Mm-hmm. So and that's interesting because on the election map, I was looking at it. If you like look at the state and then zoom into where it was blue, most of the blue pockets, especially for North Carolina, for instance, were where colleges were. So like NC State, Chapel Hill, ECU, Wilmington, Fayetteville State. Like those pockets of blue were where the most educated people were, and that's what was turning those particular counties. So it's interesting. I guess this is Texas. It's different that's happening on college campuses. But then again, I'm really not surprised with racism. So
yeah, it's sad, and I'm really concerned about the well-being of young people. They're our future for sure, and them having to deal with this day to day. It's not fair. So that's the reason why I'm continuing to stay in the fight, is because I want to make sure that young people do not have to deal with this on a regular basis. I just can't even imagine, you know, my daughter having to experience this. I actually was talking to a good friend, and she posted online, her son is in first grade, and she actually did a video, had to tell him, break the news that Kamala did not win the election. And if you saw his face, this kid is 6 years old. He was distraught. And he was just like, what's going to happen now, mommy? 6 years old, having to worry about this. He's a little Black boy. Like, this should not be happening. So my whole focus is on the young people, making sure that, you know, they are safe and, you know, growing up in a place where they're not going to have to feel like, you know, they're going to have to watch over their shoulders, or people are actually able to lash out at them, and it's okay, because it's not. It's really not. So I'm upset. I'm upset about it.
Yeah, rightfully so. Rightfully so. I mean, I think a lot of us are upset and not shocked at all, but upset. I think for me, you know, that dark cloud, like you said, Tawanda, was definitely prominent across Instagram, but also too, I do follow a lot, because I love to laugh, so I follow a lot of funny people. and comedians. So there's been a lot of different just commentary just around more so like segmented groups, right? Like Latinos for Trump, Women for Trump, that has just, been almost just like a PSA that I'm like, you know what? That I agree. Like, I feel that. And it's almost just like, okay, where do you draw the line? Like what was important to you? And it just really seems like race was a big factor in it. So I came across this video from a TikToker, but I believe she's actually an influencer. And I'm like, I feel this. I feel all of this.
The Latinos for Trump, when he removes birthright citizenship and enacts deportation, mass deportation, I hope you know this is what you wanted. To the Blacks for Trump, when he gives police full immunity and we see police violence at an all-time high, I hope you know this is what you wanted. To the women for Trump, when you ultimately get pregnant and suffer pregnancy complications and the fetus is no longer viable, but you are forced to carry death inside your body and it could kill you and maybe does, I hope you know this is what you wanted. And lastly, to the gays for Trump, when he enacts mass annulments of all of our marriages, I hope you know this is what you wanted. You will no longer be entitled to your kids or that home that you share with your partner. Congratulations. I have nothing for you except concepts of thoughts and prayers.
Listen, I mean, but these are really like the consequences. Like, this is what you asked for. And I felt her on so many different levels, because there's like these groups all exist. I mean, I was having a conversation with my dad about it. He's a truck driver, and the amount of just conversations that he's had with his peers that are also Black and in support of Trump is overwhelming.
Oh, I'm sure.
Right? And so you have all these groups that are just, you don't really see like the full long-term consequences. And so much so, going back to Latinos specifically, I actually came across this article this morning, which essentially is like, these folks are in the immigration ICE line, but yet they are still celebrating this victory. And for me, I am so baffled and confused as to, you are literally about to face actually being deported, and you are congratulating this win as if you wouldn't even see the life of day come 2025, when that's like his first number one priority, to do mass deportation.
And that's exactly what his press secretary said. She was like, that is the first thing on his agenda,
first
mass deportation.
Agenda. Now, and you know, it's just insane to me. I'm just like, do you not like, I don't understand how far the delusion goes. But I wanted to add a little humor to it, because that's just my personality, because there's been a lot of funny stuff out there. And I think for me, it's just like having a comedy relief at this point is, I feel like, what we need.
It's necessary.
It's bad. And, you know, we have to face this reality. But yeah, I thought, let me find the next one that I found. Here it is.
Latinos voted for Donald Trump, and he about to get y'all out on his first day of school. How you DoorDash your own demise? Your vote paid for express shipping.
American people delivered a resounding victory for President Trump, and it gives him a mandate to govern as he campaigned.
What is it?
To deliver on the promises that he made, which include on day one launching the largest mass deportation operation of illegal immigrants that Kamala Harris has allowed into this country.
On day uno, he is sending y'all to Mars like Bruno. Call y'all Bruno Mars. Trump is basically saying, come on, vamonos, everybody, let's go. And since this don't have nothing to do with me, come on, let's get to it, since you thought that Trump could do it. Go, Diego, go. And you know what? I'm going to just sit back and watch. Pay-per-view, 3D. I'm going to mind my Black business. It's just really crazy to me, because even if you good and got all your paperwork together and you legal, you know, a lot of people don't. And they about to be out of here. They got 30 minutes. But, you know, enjoy being great again. Hide your kids. Hide your wife. Alexa, play Wall to Wall by Chris Brown. They packed up in here wall to wall. And I'm back.
I mean, Oh God, I cried. I probably watched the thing like several times, but it's like, you know what? You know what resonated most with me when he said, I'm a mind my black business. Because that's where I sit right now with everything. I am tired and exhausted from having these same conversations in a country that just we're invisible. Like we don't matter. That's how it feels.
I'm not attending any rallies. I'm not signing any more petitions.
Nope.
And I'm not giving any more of my coin to anyone who does not want to stand up for me. So we will be standing in our own truth and minding our own business, because I have no energy for any of it anymore. I'm done.
And I think what's interesting is that I've been seeing, I'm not sharing this as anything I found, but and both of you saying that, I've seen a lot of conversations around the POC label. Ooh. And how, I mean, we've always heard about that or talked about that, but I'm just seeing it a lot more after just looking at the exit polls and how people voted. And I won't want to say people make it seem like, oh, it doesn't matter who voted for who. I mean, yeah, people want to vote for their own interests and everything, but it does matter who runs this country and the precedent that they set for the way we're going to live. Knowing that Trump is representing us globally, knowing that he's about to enact laws or push for them or be a big proponent of certain ideas and executive orders and things like that, it's just scary.
Yeah,
it is scary.
Yeah, and I said, honestly, I'm like, if you voted for Trump, I don't want anything to do with you. I'm sorry, I don't. And and honestly, because at the end of the day, it's like, what are your morals? Like, what's more important to you? Dignity and integrity, or you're talking, or this sort of economic narrative that has been sort of spun out of control, where people feel like the Biden-Harris administration is the reason why our economy is the way that it is, when they actually inherited
that from his first
shitty economy.
The economy is not bad though. That's the thing. I don't know why people keep saying that about the economy. It's not
inflation, all these different things.
Well, the reason I even brought that up was because that POC term, like if Black people are lumping themselves in, it's like the other POCs weren't caring about your place in the POC bucket. So a lot of people have extracted themselves, are like, I'm Black, I'm not a POC. And I think that's just a healthy conversation to have, in my opinion, and a good conversation to have. I definitely don't consider myself a POC.
Yeah, neither do I. I think a person that people should go watch Dr. Umar's, like, his rationale around that. Mm-hmm. It'll give you understanding of why we should not classify ourselves in that bucket of POC for sure.
Yeah. Because and he's got some very interesting conversations. Yeah.
So I'm so happy that we actually were able to have this conversation, because it actually allowed us to kind of just digest everything that has been going on, and just being able to release some of the frustration that we've had, over the past couple of days, because it's still fresh and new. We're still seeing a lot of aftermath that's coming out, and I don't think it's going to end. I think that we're going to go into this holiday season with people trying to make things very uncomfortable for us, but I want people to really grab your friends, grab your family, hold them close and tight, and know that's really what matters. And not get yourself too wrapped up in, this thing. He has been voted in. He is going to be our next president starting in 2025. And we just have to do what we need to do to make sure that our lives and our family and friends' lives are the best that they can possibly be. Like you said, Tawanda, I serve one God, and one man does not dictate what my life is going to ultimately turn out to be. So I'm being myself and my friends and families, up in prayer, and going to continue living my life to the best, to the fullest.
Absolutely. Well said.
Let's see here. I wanted to get to, I think we talked about this, but I'll just pose the question. Do you think millions of voters acted against their own interest in the form of trying to act for their own interests? We talked about the Latino community and what's being enacted at the top of the year, according to Trump. Do you think we, as a nation, acted against our own interest?
I mean, this is the interesting thing. I have yet to see a full agenda from Trump on what he was going to do when he actually was, if he was going to be voted in as president. Like I've heard him talk about things like the deportation. You know, I've heard him talk about tariffs, you know, at a very high, you know, very immature level. But I haven't seen, so when you talk about, you know, at people's, the interest that, you know, people would have, like people were invested in propaganda. You know, they talked about they wanted a strong leader. So strong for a lot of people means men. You know, they want a man at the helm of running this country. So I really can't say, oh, you know, people are gonna, you know, they're gonna do this. I know one thing, the Latinos are gonna be in trouble because there's gonna be a lot of that. Deportation is number one on his agenda, and they've already stated it. So yeah, I hope that, you know, Trump doesn't do what, you know, it causes a huge like mass chaos and whatever it is going to look like. Mass deportation is not a good thing. It's going to affect a lot of us.
It's
a lot. So
it's
I just think, you know, let the chips fall where they may, but I haven't seen him have a full-blown agenda for me to even say, you know, one group of people are going to be affected versus another.
Or what you saw or what you heard was concepts of a plan.
Yes,
right?
Concepts.
Yeah. So.
Or what's going to rattle people the most. You know?
Yeah. I just think people just were so shattered, or really just trying to kind of they were thinking about the economy. They were thinking about sort of like inflation. They one track minded. And I think there was a striking pattern that obviously came to light in the election results, or, you know, was that were voters actually rejecting the Democrats, or were they just rejecting the Biden-Harris administration? I think that's what it is, you know, given how, you know, how the proximity to her getting the bid, which was less than 3 months, you know, she couldn't, so to speak, untether herself from Biden, right? And really, and I think that's also too a looming narrative that we're seeing across the board, is like how she can really convince voters that she can offer change, you know, especially
well, you know, there were hundreds,
like so much economic anxiety.
There was hundreds of millions of Democrats who were registered Democrats who did not vote.
Yeah.
Because they decided that they weren't going to vote for Trump, and they weren't going to vote for Kamala because of what's happening in Gaza.
Yep.
That was a huge thing for people, and she never addressed it. And not saying that she needed to, but maybe that was one of the reasons why, you know, people were like, you know what, I just can't do it. I can't vote for either. I'm not going to vote for Trump. I'm not going to vote for Kamala because they just have not. That war has caused a lot of pain and grief for a lot of people, and it was not brought to the forefront and addressed the way that a lot of people wanted it to. So she lost a lot of Democratic votes because of that one issue. So it's crazy. It's interesting to see how people were like really steadfast on saying, you know what, I'm not doing it. I don't care. You know, they knew Trump was going to be an option, but they still won't really vote for Kamala.
Yeah, wasn't it like maybe some odds of like 20 million? It was a big chunk of folks that sat it out, like compared to the last election round.
Yeah,
I want to say, I mean, it was. I don't know if I'm being overzealous with that, but it was a pretty big.
It was a great number. Yeah. That made an impact on the election ultimately.
Yeah, to your point, Nikkia, like the whole time I was like, why is everyone so focused on the economy? Like that's our only issue. And it just kind of goes back to how capitalistic we are as a society to think that the economy is the only thing that affects our daily lives. Women's reproductive rights, education. Wanting to shut down the Department of Education is probably, to me, worse than the economy stuff in my mind. Like wanting to erase the history of what our nation has been built on, whether good or bad or indifferent, whatever you feel like, erasing that. Again, having autonomy over women's bodies, and that is a personal choice. Those are issues that, to me, trump, no pun intended, like the issues of how much money is in your pocket. I'm sorry, and maybe I'm saying that because I'm not the person that's qualifying for a Trump tax break, or I'm not able to pay people $1 million to vote for my candidate, and still be fine when the dust settles. But it's just, even people on my timeline are just worried about the economy, and I'm like, you have a lot more to be worried about than the stock market.
Especially those that make less than $360,000.
Tax break? Are you trying to get like it's going to affect the middle class?
Well, it's
the middle class is the bedrock of our
tax breaks, and it's like you don't even have any stock. What are you talking about? The stock market, you don't have any stock.
Like,
well, not to belabor this point, because we'll be talking about this in some capacity for the next 4 years. It's about to be a clown show, I feel like.
Yes.
Because I feel like people really forget the things that happened when that man was in office the very first time. The passports that had to be checked in the airport where people were grounded. Yep. The stop and frisk for Hispanics that was happening.
Yeah.
I mean, the Clorox. It's so much. But anyways, we could go on and on.
COVID.
Okay. That could have been.
No, because all they thinking about is that stimulus check.
This of nothingness. Anyways, what after all of this, what is y'all's hope for the future as we wrap this up? Like, what is your hope moving forward, or what do you feel like next steps are moving forward?
Nikkia?
I mean, selfishly, like I said, when we were rounding it, when we initially started this conversation, for Black people especially, like we really just have to act selfishly in building our next phase, whatever that looks like. I think I saw something yesterday that was essentially talking about how, invest in yourself. This is where this sort of next phase is going to be like, it's actually going to serve you well to really invest in yourself, start a business if you haven't, invest in some real estate, like get really smart, like you have to play chess at this point. And so I think that would be my piece of advice is to, start investing into yourself and what that looks like for you and your loved ones.
Yeah, absolutely. I think for me, I'm going to go back to, the youth, making sure that they have, peace of mind, not having to go to school worried about, someone saying something to them being targeted, with text messages or social media posts and all the things. I want them to be able to not have anxiety about this, that it's going to be okay. And it's important for us to reassure them. And I'm with you, Nikkia. I think this is a great opportunity for us to start supporting one another. And you talk about small business. It's like, we're small business owners. You know what I mean? Like, we own a small business. So we want people to support us. I just launched a book. I want people to purchase my book. The content is great. So when we start getting in, a space where we are really coming together, collaborating, and not seeing each other as competition and really pulling each other up, I think that we'll see ourselves in a different space after these 4 years. I think our agenda will be so much more clear once we start really banding together and supporting one another, because we can't expect people to save us. We have to get to work, period.
I agree. I think for me, to that point, and to a point that was made earlier in this conversation, if propaganda led people to vote for someone who has none of their best interests, in my opinion, at heart and in mind, then for me, the way we move forward is through education. We have to educate ourselves. We have to understand if propaganda led you to make that decision to vote for someone, think about how much propaganda is in your daily life leading you in the wrong direction.
Yep.
Educate yourself on everything that you possibly can. Learn more, seek knowledge, open the book up and read for yourself and know for yourself. Yes, because that's where information can be found. Where's LeVar Burton when you need him?
I know.
At the White House the other day.
Like, I just think the lack of education, lack of knowledge, like the Bible says you will perish from a lack of knowledge. And that goes leaps and bounds in the world that we live in. And so we have to really educate ourselves so that we can improve and help each other and help society. So that would be like what I believe is the way forward for us.
That's a good one. Yes, absolutely. If we are going to perish if this...
perish. Okay.
Lord, have mercy.
Well, that wraps up an interesting and needed episode of Black and Audacious. We want to thank all of you for continuing to support and listen to the show, whether that's on YouTube at Black and Audacious, whether you're listening to the clips on Instagram at Black and Audacious, whether you found us on Spotify, Apple Podcasts, that's where we are. Find, like, subscribe, comment, all the things. We have some really great episodes in store, so stay tuned and always stay Black and Audacious.
Bye, y'all.
See you later.